Letter reads to the Honorable Mark W. Myers, Mayor of the City of Greenwood. Dear Sir, my name is David Hewitt. I and James Kip Farrar serve as pastors of Aletheia Church on Madison Avenue on the south side of Indianapolis, just north of Stockelman Road. On Saturday, June 1st, I and a couple of men who were working with our church drove to the south side of Woodman Park, intending to preach the gospel into the Greenwood Pride event. We had done this last year here and also in Indianapolis over multiple years. And we were desirous of communicating the good news of Jesus Christ to people who were celebrating what God calls a terrible sin, telling them the way out of it through Jesus Christ. We had set up our loudspeaker equipment as well as some signs just outside the south entrance to the park and the small area of land between the park property and the subdivision property. I turned them on, played a short song, briefly introduced myself, and explained why we were there. All this took about 5 minutes. I was about to start preaching from 1 Corinthians 6, verses 9 through 11, when two uniformed officers approached me. One dressed in a green and yellow uniform, obviously the one in charge, and another officer dressed in the more traditional police blues. We'd actually met the senior officer the year before at the same event. He told us that we needed to turn off our amplifiers if we didn't have a permit for them, which we did not. I asked what would happen if we did not, and he replied that we would be cited first and then arrested. He asked if I had any questions. I told him I did not at the time. I and the two men with me talked with a few people going in, passing out some gospel literature as well, which I provided each of you. We remained for a couple of hours, but did not continue using the sound equipment. After our confrontation with the police officers, I consulted the Greenwood City Code regarding noise regulations. I found information under section 6-277 and the nuisances prohibited document or code that deals with this particular issue. However, I did notice a couple of discrepancies between the code and what I was told, one with how the lead officer informed me of what I needed to have in order to use my amplification equipment, and another with regard to the consequences for continuing to use it. First, the ordinance under 4C indicates that it is technically a waiver, not a permit, I would need to have in order to use my equipment. This is just a matter of semantics. But the other issue is a bit more important. Second, as I said above, the senior officer threatened me with arrest. Section 12E of this part of the city code specifies the penalties for using sound equipment without the aforementioned waiver. Offenses are dealt with by way of citation, the first offense on a calendar day being $50. Multiple offenses increase the fine, which is not surprising, but nowhere in this section of the code does arrest appear as a consequence or penalty. So it would seem I was threatened with arrest when arrest is not even permitted for violating the noise ordinance. Setting aside the threat of arrest for a moment, there's something else about the city code in question I wish to mention here. At the very top of the document titled Nuisances Prohibited, we have a list of prohibited items and activities. That very first sentence states in part, the municipal code prohibits the doing of an act of the omission of a duty or the suffering or permitting of a condition that offends decency. The event in Woodman Park that day was a celebration of sodomy and lesbianism, sexual perversions that God calls an abomination in Scripture, in Leviticus as well as condemning it in other areas, directly and indirectly.
You have 30 seconds.
Thank you. Genesis 20, 1 Timothy 1, 1 Corinthians 6, Jude 1, and Matthew 19 to name a few. It's the height of indecency, and yet the city of Greenwood not only allowed such an event to take place, but your police force effectively shielded people from the preaching of the gospel, both of which ought not have happened. Kip and I, as well as our church and those who work with us, have every desire to be law-abiding citizens in your city. We do not seek conflict with your fine city, but will not run away from conflict either. If this event happens in Greenwood again next year, we will be there with our equipment to preach the gospel. As an effort to avoid conflict with your police force and to demonstrate that we wish to be law-abiding, we will apply for the required waivers beforehand for your code, though arguably we do not need them based on footnote 2. Lastly, we wish to inform you that we plan to attend a city council meeting. That will be this one, and present the content of this letter during time for public comment. We will not be disruptive, but we wish you to be very aware of what took place on June 1st. All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you.